Hey everybody, it is TorontoUnicorn here, and this is an introduction to a very new podcast called Life Hack Your Breakup, and it is all meant to help you streamline and make the most efficient use out of the shitty grief that you are being dealt if you have just gone through a breakup, whether it's a romantic breakup or a friendship breakup, whatever the issue is, it's hard. It's hard, and I've seen people, especially myself, especially growing up, have really hard time navigating the unknown waters of grief, how to handle the changes and impact to your nervous system, how to cope with the intrusive thoughts and ruminating and desperation, frankly, of trying to end a situation that's causing so much pain, right? So I am here to deliver the best life hacks and especially positive stories on how to actually minimize the negative impact on you for this breakup. Now, I am the first to admit that you cannot bypass grief. As much as I would have loved to find the most perfect life hack for it, haven't found it yet. But I do know that grief is challenging. It takes time. And it's what you do with that time that can make it, whether or not your grief will be prolonged or not. So instead of trying to shortcut grief, what we're going to do is we're going to change the impact of it. We're going to soften the blow wherever we can. I have gone through hard breakups in my life, so much so that I had a 10-year period of time after a major breakup where I just couldn't even let myself date or be with anyone else because I was so sure that it was the guy that, I grew up my high school sweetheart sort of thing that basically I thought was everything. And when I lost him, I didn't think there was any point in trying to find again. So I have personally seen the benefits and the consequences of knowing how to navigate a breakup. And one of those things is, learning the importance of the stages of grief, right? Also understanding acceptance. No one wants to accept a shitty situation. I'm the first to admit it. There's a lot in life we can't control. And just not accepting something doesn't mean it's not actually happening. And so it's actually a life hack to be able to learn to thrive in acceptance of the things you can't change in life instead of resistance of it. Going through breakups are tough, and you don't have to do it alone. I'll be here step by step to give you the best tips and tricks I've ever found to make it a little less harsh, a little less hard on us. Soften the bumps, soften the blows so that you can build yourself back up, find who the fuck you are, and get back out there. Before we get into this, you should know that each individual life hack is also available in its own separate episode. If you don't have time to listen to them all in one sitting, you can find the link in the description. Life hack 1, responding to the shock to your nervous system. If you have just gone through a breakup, most likely been dumped, you are probably experiencing a shock to your nervous system. Maybe yesterday or today you were normal and then suddenly this thing happens and you don't even know how to stop your own overwhelming feelings, your own sense of crying, anger, grief, sadness. How do you get rid of the grief? How do you exist with this looming feeling around you all the time? It can be extremely overwhelming and can cause extreme anxiety in people who even otherwise don't normally have anxiety. The most important thing you need to do in order to heal after a breakup or any other traumatic event is calm down. Why do they say that to people when they're clearly not going to be calm? Because it needs to happen for you to even be able to start working on the healing, because you need to get yourself to a place of emotional safety enough that you can calm down and be present in the decisions that you're making instead of making them out of fear or anxiety or panic. So there's a lot of ways to do this. Obviously, if it's really serious, go to your doctor, see if you can get something that might help. But I am a firm believer in nature is healing. I would never go sit on the grass every morning, which by the way, I do, if there wasn't a good reason to, right? I do every single morning and sometimes twice a day. And I put my bare feet on the ground and I feel differently in my life when I start touching nature every day. So when you are really lost, and even if you don't normally engage with nature, I encourage you to keep an open mind, take off your socks and shoes, walk on grass, walk on the sand of the beach, and just sit and be with yourself in nature. And you will hopefully see that it helps. It helps balance you out. It helps bring you to a state of present, even if you have an otherwise hard time. I don't meditate very well. I have an ADHD brain. It thinks way too fast for me to try to control it so far. I'm working on it. But the thing is, it's a lot. And when you have intrusive thoughts or things that you don't know how to deal with, it can be very overwhelming. You need to know how to bring yourself back down and calm your nervous system. And one of the ways with the mental chatter is by journaling. So you'll hear a whole episode on journaling because it deserves its own fucking podcast, frankly, of how effective it is for managing your own emotional volatility. It is a good way of almost just letting some of that hot air, let that hot air out of a balloon, visual, if you will, to take the pressure off so that you can just at least exist with what you're dealing with. Another important tool you can use is YouTube or podcasts to listen to softening or calming sounds. There's literally playlists that you can get that are soft, nature sounds or calming music or a certain hertz of music that is meant to help with healing. So there's things that you can listen to that will also help calm your brain even at times when you're otherwise struggling. So there's ways to calm your nervous system, right? Go in nature, journal. You can also go to the doctor, get something prescribed if it's really serious. But the truth is, take care of yourself as if you were sick with the flu. Give yourself time in bed. If you need to call in sick for work, then you fucking do it. Because I have had to go many times after a breakup and not go to work for a few days after because I was a fucking mess. And if you are a mess, then you deserve to be in your safe space. Hopefully you can crawl up in a bed with your big covers, watch your favorite movie, do something to bring yourself back to a place of, almost coddling your inner child. Just give yourself that big metaphorical hug or even physical, wrap your own arms around your own body and try to comfort yourself. These are really important strategies to bring in control and alignment your nervous system, because then the rest of the life hacks you're going to hear on this podcast are going to be helpful. They're going to sink in. But first, you got to stop flailing emotionally. And that was the word flailing, like a visual of somebody drowning is flailing in the water. When you're flailing in emotions, it can be hard. You'll grasp onto anything, a substance, something that, alcohol or a drug or casual sex or whatever. And you might use those things as a way of trying to also fill this need. But I'm going to try and help you choose adaptive and healthy constructive strategies because, those other things might help temporarily or feel like a Band-Aid, but they are not for your highest good, and you deserve to know how to heal on your own. The rest of these life hacks were really specifically chosen by me because they actually helped my life. So I'm not going to waste your time. These are literally meant to help you not waste your own time and get over the grief as soon as possible because, you have one life to live and you have one heart to be able to go through life and give away, pieces of it to people throughout. And you deserve to be able to recover, even if you've loved somebody almost too much, right? Even if you gave too much of yourself away. There is a way that you can come back home to yourself, restore your harmony, your equilibrium, and build again. Life hack 2, let them, your new favorite philosophy. One of the hardest parts of losing somebody with a breakup is accepting a loss, accepting the fact that somebody is going to leave you or doesn't want to choose to have you in their life. And we can do a million things in our head to try and figure out, well, how can I fix this so that they don't leave me? How can I prevent, people from leaving me or cheating on me or divorcing me or finding someone better? And some people will go far. They'll try to lose weight. They'll try to work on certain things that the other person didn't like as a way of trying to win them back. And I totally get it. It's a panic response of, loss. And when people do things in your life to hurt you or to leave you behind, it can feel like a real primal panic. And what I need to tell you is based on my own experience in life, but also going through many breakups and also studying psychology. You have absolutely no fucking control over what people do in life. You really don't. I don't care if it's a wedding vow that someone makes to you, those are easily broken. And then so is divorce, right? So divorce is a solution to marriage if somebody wants out. We take comfort in these things of, if I get married, someone will never leave me. Well, actually, that's not true. It'll just be more costly and frustrating and tragic, frankly, when they do want to leave you, if they want to leave you. So I know we go around trying to safeguard our lives and make it so that people don't leave or don't want to leave. But the real truth, the real harsh reality, and it's a beautiful one when you actually do accept it, is that you really don't have control over anyone and anyone's decision. And once you realize that you are all you have in this life, you are the one and true person that you can count on, and everyone else is on their own journey and you have no control, then you will have peace from that feeling of panic and resistance to all of the loss. And so there is this let them methodology, and there's a lot of poetry written about it. A lot of people get tattoos with the words let them. And I want to read you basically it's kind of like the sayings that go with let them, but it's basically a philosophy of stop resisting when people are showing you that they don't want you in your life. Stop resisting when people are showing you that they don't, value you or will show up for you. It's a way of surrender, but for your own mental sanity. So I'm going to read it. It's called Let Them. Just let them. If they want to choose something or someone over you, let them. If they want to go weeks without talking to you, let them. If they are okay with never seeing you again, let them. If they are okay with always putting themselves first, let them. If they are showing you who they are and not what you perceive them to be, let them. If they want to follow the crowd, let them. If they want to judge or misunderstand you, let them. If they act like they can live without you, let them. If they want to walk out of your life and leave, hold the door open and let them. Let them lose you. You were never theirs because you were always your own. So let them. Let them show you who you truly are, not tell you. Let them prove how worthy they are of your time. Let them make the necessary steps to be part of your life. Let them earn your forgiveness. Let them call you to talk about ordinary things. Let them take you out on a Thursday. Let them talk about anything and everything just because it's you they are talking to. Let them have a safe place in you. Let them see the heart in you that didn't harden. Let them love you. So this is just one piece of poetry I found with the whole let them philosophy. And frankly, it's a beautiful thing when you realize that because you have no control, all you can do is do your best to be a good person, to be somebody that people would want to, feel safe with or have in their life. And if people still don't want to stay, then let them go. Because you do genuinely deserve people who you don't have to try so fucking hard to keep in your life. You really do. I know it's hard because we are willing to go to bat for people. We're willing to bend over backwards sometimes to just be the partner they want us to be when we just can't fathom the idea of losing them instead. I get it. But there is no benefit in this resistance of people's decisions impacting you. You have no control. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you stop playing a losing game, trying to get that control, because it's all an illusion. So when it comes to a breakup, my best advice is do what you can to accept the present moment without trying to decide what will you do in the future if they come back. Should you reach out? Should you not? For now, you need to resolve yourself to the philosophy of let them and also let yourself heal. Feel free to look on my website, TorontoUnicorn.com. I have additional resources for Life Hack Your Breakup there, and you can get links to other, in my opinion, profound or powerful let them content that kind of changed and resonated with me. So don't forget, you can also get a lot of breakup memes for your doom scrolling need. You can go to the breakup memes Instagram account or Facebook page, and I'll put a link in the description of this podcast. Life Hack 3, the no contact method, the holy grail of breakup survival. The most important piece of advice I'm going to give you about this whole breakup journey is called the no contact method. I have spent months and years of my past selves trying to decipher the reason for a breakup or analyze it to death or hold on just because I thought if I just didn't let them go, then that meant it really wasn't over and one day we would get back together. No, I'm telling you, I have studied psychology in school. I've also been in psychology of real life when I'm basically getting broken up with or whatever dumped throughout my life. And the most effective strategy that you can have, especially if you're the dumpy in the situation, meaning you were the one that were left, is the no contact method. There's two specific outcomes that some people do the no contact method for. One of them is in the hopes of actually getting their ex back. But the other one is to actually heal and move on. And the good news is it's the same method, the same process for both goals. So I don't actually recommend doing the no contact method specifically for the goal of getting your ex back, because I don't think that's very healing to try and wait them out and see if enough of them missing you brings them back. I think that there's some reason that people might try that, sure. But if you are going to need to heal and get past the pain and the traumatic experience of the breakup, you need to focus with that as your goal. And then if they do happen to come back, then that's something you can address as it happens. because there's psychology underneath the no contact method, which is basically don't talk to them. Don't text them. Don't say happy birthday to them. Don't text them because you saw a meme that you like. Don't go to their social media. Don't check up on them. Don't look at what they're posting. Don't go near it. When you look under the hood, and I'm saying that metaphorically, of a breakup and a brain addiction to a substance, when a person is going through withdrawal, they're very similar experiences. When you're in a sudden breakup, it's almost as if you're getting weaned off without your permission, a drug or a substance or something that you were addicted to. Maybe it's that person or how you felt with that person. And you're suddenly being told to go no contact, and that's really hard. But just like you can't get over a cigarette addiction by only smoking, 1 or 2 cigarettes a day and the equivalent of no contact, it's like, oh, if I text them once or twice a week. No. You need to go cold turkey. You need to separate the addiction from the withdrawal symptoms so that you have freedom from it. Because when you are going through withdrawal of a drug, you will feel similar experiences. You might even get flu-like symptoms. There's a sense of panic. There's a sense of urgency to go and get in contact. What if you just drive by their house? What if you just call from an unknown number? Maybe if you hear their voice. That is like an addict behavior, right? That's someone who needs a fix. In this case, it's like a dopamine fix in their brain or something that they're trying to get from their ex. And I get it. It's super, super hard. But the only way to actually separate and break an addiction is to not engage with the substance, or in this case, the person. You need to go cold turkey, and that is equivalent to what they call the no contact method. So there's some real strategies behind the no contact method and some really good people who give advice on YouTube and other podcasts. And I am going to put some links because, you know what, I can't recreate the wheel here. There are people who do such a fantastic job of explaining, the whole philosophy and psychology behind no contact that I'm going to put their links on my webpage for you to find, because I genuinely want you to get the best information out there, even if it's not from me. But back to the whole philosophy is this is how you heal. If you want to know the raw, honest truth of how do you heal with a breakup, I promise you it's not by driving by their house once a week to get your fix. It's by no contact. It's by separating yourself and deciding that you need to let that person and their contact go. Even if one day that changes and you decide to have a conversation with them down the road, that's something you can decide when you're in a more healed state. But if you are sensing urgency or a panic feeling and you just need to get your hit of someone, and that's why you want to reach out because you want to hear their voice or whatever, think about how embarrassing it is to you and your soul when you do reach out and they leave you hanging. There's lots of people who are fresh off a breakup who think if I could only just talk to my ex, they'd understand. And then they go to great, lengths to go do that. And then they walk away feeling even more rejected, even humiliated. And then you have to deal with those feelings on top of the breakup. So I won't lie. Sometimes I break the no contact method out of, weakness, let's call it. And then I have to learn my lesson and I go back to no contact usually. So we're not perfect. But the point of no contact is that just like an alcoholic can go, they keep a count of how many days they're alcohol free. So do you do that in no contact methods. So you would basically start a count. There's certain apps on your phone that are counts, and it'll be 3 days since you had contact with so-and-so. And then, a week later, it's 10 days since you've had contact with so-and-so. And it's like a way of watching and monitoring your progress so that you feel stronger and more committed to no contact. So I know how hard it is for me when I'm seeing 20 days no contact, and then I have a moment of weakness and I send them a message or I text them something stupid, and then I have to reset the clock back to no contact to be 0. I mean, it's not a great feeling, but just like when an alcoholic has a chip in his pocket that says, 1,000 days drink free, that person probably carries that around so that they don't have even one slip up, right? You don't want to lose that progress. So another part of the no contact method that works for me is keeping a log of your wins in no contact. So every single day in your phone or a piece of paper, you write down the date and you write down the things that you did that aided in your no contact. Maybe one of those things is that you went and, deleted all of the photos on your phone or put them in an archive of your ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend. Great. Put that onto the no contact wins list, which is what I'm describing. And if you, thought about texting them, because your favorite restaurant just went out of business and you wanted to let them know, but then you stopped yourself because you realized that that would actually be sending your progress back of healing. And at times, your energy being pushed on someone who's actually dumped you could potentially backfire and make them think, oh, that person's so annoying, right? So you don't want that either. So then you would write down, didn't text them when this happened. And then you put that under your list of no contact wins. So this is a method that you can cling to. You can study it up and down. There's lots of good advice out there on how to stick to no contact, how to do no contact, even if you have children with somebody. There's lots of ways to kind of limit something like an interaction with someone to basically the nuts and bolts, right, of just the topics you need to talk about. So there is adaptions to other ways. So please go to the website, TorontoUnicorn.com. I will say that they have looked in a brain scan in psychology, they've looked at brain scan of people with a traumatic breakup and people who are getting off substance issues. And it's a similar experience. There's withdrawal symptoms. There's, even just physiological symptoms, like you sweat, you cry. Guess what? Eventually you get over it. Eventually you move past those symptoms, but not if you hang on to the thing that you're addicted to, even in small amounts. If you keep, hanging on and using a little bit of contact here and a little bit of social media snooping there, you might not actually get rid of those symptoms. They might just prolong, and it might prolong your whole healing journey. So stop wasting your own time and get on the no contact method, because even if you do want your ex back, this is also the way to do it.
Life hack 4: throwaway accounts and your new online support system.
You also are going to need to have some throwaway accounts on social media, because once you start feeding algorithms information like, I got my heart broken, good luck ever escaping the avalanche of memes and posts and suggestions that will be in that theme. And the reason that that's a bad thing is that there's a point when you're going through a breakup where you actually need to not focus on the breakup. You need to not be reminded of the breakup in order to move on. And so you don't want to be drowning in an algorithm that has learned who you are temporarily, and then you have a hard time turning that off. My best advice: create a whole new email, even if it's called fuckmyex.com, whatever, and then you use it to create a Facebook, create a Reddit, create an Instagram. Now, I'm not suggesting you use this to go and stalk your exes, although clearly that is a back alley way of doing that. But what I would suggest is, for example, I have a Reddit account that is not my normal account. And when I have to go and look over all of the other breakup threads, or no contact with your ex threads, or infidelity threads, or, dealing with toxic relationships, I can go and I can read and respond to those with supportive comments or whatever. And then I can basically switch out of that profile when I want to go back to my normal browsing. And then I'm back to things what are in my normal feed. So Seinfeldisms or interesting as fuck. These are great Reddit threads that I follow. So my biggest recommendation here is to get these throwaway accounts, but use them and use them well. Because if you go to Reddit, if you go to Facebook, there are places, there are groups that are called breakup support group. And if you can go and join and be part of an online community, even if this does not normally sound appealing to you at all, sometimes there's a need for connection, for someone to hear your pain. And if you don't have a big support system, this could be a huge life hack to being able to get that need met. So use your new Facebook or Instagram to follow the accounts that have the sad breakup quotes, pour your heart out and get those things in, because it is part of your process. But the reason you need these throwaways is for the same reason that sometimes you're not in the mood to be sad anymore, and then you just need to turn it off. So if you can log out of your throwaway account, log back in as your other account, it's like a breath of fresh air.
Life hack 5: silence notifications on your phone. It helps keep you calm.
If you are constantly looking at your phone and every time, a beep goes off or it vibrates, you hope, even if you have a split second of hope that it's your ex coming back, I have a strategy that is going to help solve that problem. It doesn't mean you have to block them right away. If you're not ready for that, you don't have to do that. But there is a way to calm your nervous system so that you don't go around hearing beeps and buzzes and getting triggered like a freaking dog, like a dog with a bell. It is as simple as that. So what I do is, for example, when I had a boyfriend, I would give them a unique ringtone, which was also interesting because they also had a unique vibrate. And no matter where I was in my apartment, I would know who was texting me, right? When you're going through a breakup, First of all, I didn't necessarily want to hear those sounds because it would startle me, but I also wouldn't want to miss a message, for example, if he did send something. So my strategy was to go right into I have an iPhone. I don't really know how it works for like Android. And I went to our chat and I basically swiped to the left and I hit mute. There's a little bell button and I hit mute. And what mute means is that he can still send me messages and it'll show up with a number like that there's a new message, but it won't show up in my notifications and it won't alert me. And it's true because then when it happened, my ex did reach out. I didn't know until I opened my phone and saw a number of messages that was number one. And I was like, well, I didn't hear anything. And I looked down and sure enough, it was from the muted conversation. So the reason that that is such a life hack is because you don't walk around associating stress with the sound of your phone, because you have other people who might text you or call you or just make your phone buzz, and you don't want to be triggered. You don't want your nervous system to be aroused when you're trying to get through a breakup. So this is a really good life hack. You need to mute that person's chats and ability to call you and have it affect your phone. If you don't know how to do that, you could even technically just turn your phone on like private mode or whatever, and you could still access your messages and everything, but that way it won't go off. It won't ding you, right? It won't be like ding, and then you like, oh, is it him? Is it him? And you're like, no, it's just my Uber Eats coming, you know? You don't want that. You don't want to jump every time you hear your phone. So that's a huge life hack.
Life hack 6, effortless affirmations, a cheat code to manifesting.
So I know a lot of people in mainstream society talk about affirmations and how helpful they can be. You know, things like saying a certain mantra to yourself to, get it into your brain that you're confident or you're worthy or things like that. So affirmations are helpful, sure, but not every one of us wants to go around all day reciting affirmations. And for some of us, we really can't be bothered. And so what I have done is found a way to create a very strong affirmation that you end up saying. And even if you don't say it, you're still computing it in the energetic sphere because it is genius. So what that is changing your passwords for your email or your Facebook or whatever. You can go in, hit change password. I know no one loves to do this, but this is why. You change your password to an affirmation. Maybe your password is I love myself or I am worthy. Like even if that is it, I am worthy is your password, go and change it in all these places. Then every time you have to type that new password in, you're going to be effectively doing an affirmation. And not only that, even if you keep hitting save password and don't even have to type it in anymore, the universe is basically still computing the fact that that password was validated in order for you to get onto your site. So yeah, maybe you didn't type it in, but it was still computed in order to validate your access. So that means that that affirmation was used, right? So that's my life hack. If you want a way to, multiple times a day, have a phrase or a very powerful saying be sent out on your behalf in the universe, make it your password. So this is a genius one. I like it because it's very low effort and you get max reward.
Life hack 7, stop stalking their social media profiles because it is harming you.
Speaking of social media, honestly, you should really stop stalking their profiles. I'm telling you, I know it's addictive. I know the curiosity is going to get to you. So do it a few times, whatever. But you know what? It is equivalent to emotional self-harm when you go and look at pictures of your ex and look at what they're up to now, or check out their new girlfriend's Instagram and scrutinize the hell out of it. It is emotional self-harm. One of the best things I learned on Reddit for how some person told me that they got through this was they said it hurt their healing progress so much when they would peek on their ex's profiles. Like they see a picture of them with someone and it would make them have all of the heavy stages of grief return. And they said it set them back months of healing. And so what they did is instead of a knife, because I don't want to trigger anyone, but self-harm's a thing. And instead they use a marker, and they use a black marker, and they would put a mark on their wrist every time they went and looked at their ex. So they had a visual indication that they were hurting themselves. And it's a reminder that you're doing this to yourself. So, these are just some tactics that I've learned that are, I think, real life hacks for how to progress through a breakup, as unscathed as possible.
Life hack 8, rename their contact in your phone. It's possible that you're not quite ready to delete a whole chat history with a person that you're getting over, especially if it's fresh. And I know some people are aggressive, like Cheryl will delete everything, delete all the photos. I'm different. I have a bit of I want to like document them in like the archives of my life somewhere. So sometimes for me, out of sight, out of mind is good enough for things like that. But one of the best life hacks I've found to remind yourself of how you feel on the inside about a person and how they've made you feel is to go into their contact on your phone and hit edit and rename them. So if let's just say their name was Bob, okay, hypothetically, you backspace Bob and you write something that's meaningful to you that will be helpful to see if that person ever texts you again. You could use the phrase, he cheated on me. You could use the phrase, didn't treat me well, whatever it is that you need to remind yourself. Some people can be used, just bad emojis, like a poop emoji. Like you could just pick, be creative, but you can relabel it to something even as simple as he didn't choose you. And that way, every time that they text you, if they do, those will be the words you see before you take in what they have to share via text. And not only that, if you ever do have nostalgia and go scrolling through your old chat history, well, at the top, it's going to be like, he's a dickhead as you're scrolling through. Be like, oh, yeah, he is a dickhead. So this life hack has worked for me so much so that it's almost like a ritual. Whenever I have an issue or break up with someone, I like rename it to be like, don't go back. And then like, that way if they're texting me from don't go back, I'm like, okay, there's clearly a reason I said that to myself one day. So, because sometimes when you get some distance from pain, you can forget about how someone treated you or how it made you feel. You can, heal. And I think if you rename it in their phone, you will at least be leaving yourself a note that's like, hey, watch out, don't trust them again. And true story, I once had to relabel a guy's contact info to say his words are meaningless, like that was the name of the contact. And then when he texted me something like, a couple of weeks later, something about missing me, whatever, I open up a text from his words are meaningless that said like I miss you, and I just kind of like scoffed to myself because I was like, that's kind of funny. It's like, hey, don't believe him, but this is what he said. So it's a helpful reminder from you to you in times when you're stuck. So
Life hack 9. Feng Shui your ex out of your physical space.
if you had your ex over for sleepovers or hangouts or whatever, and then you break up, it can be really traumatic to kind of look at the same chair or the same bedding and be like, oh my gosh, it smells like him still, or, that was his spot on the bed, or that was his favorite cookies that are sitting in the cabinet or whatever. And it can kind of haunt you. So I don't know much about Feng Shui, but I do know that I'm an energy healer. I know that energy impacts us on multiple levels, even if we're aware of it or not. And one of the most effective life hacks for dealing with a breakup is changing the physical space around you. If they had a favorite chair, your ex, if they had a favorite chair that they sat on or something, move that chair, cover that chair in something else, put a book on it, put something on it that makes it used for something else. I like to rearrange furniture. I don't want the couch to be in the same place after a breakup because every time I sit on that couch, I'll just be missing him beside me, right? So if I move the couch to a different part of my apartment or my house, then it's like I've changed the energy in the room. When I sit there, I'm not sitting in our old memories of nostalgia. I have a bit of a different change of perspective. Even if it seems small, the physical change is impactful. So this goes if they have a drawer at your house, if they had dressers and they had things that they used, space that they used, don't just leave it empty once they've cleared out their stuff. Use it. Find a beautiful purpose for it, right? Maybe get a plant, put a plant in where they used to put their shoes. I don't know. Figure out a way to utilize the space that they used to occupy into something that actually does bring you joy and basically will make you happy every time you look at it instead of sad that that space is no longer being used the old-fashioned way. It seems small, but this life hack can really do great things for your mental health.
Life hack 10. Journal your pain out. One of the best life hacks that is absolutely free and will help you in a crisis or a moment of distress is journaling. Journaling is as simple as writing down your thoughts on paper or using your notepad on your phone or whatever is convenient for you. The reason I'm telling you about journaling is because it fucking helps, okay? I have seen this. I have real stories of people I have helped in my past where I saw them basically vibrating in anger because they didn't know how to get it out of their body. They were so angry about something and not being heard, that they were physically vibrating. And I remember telling this person, get a piece of paper and a pen, and I want you to write down right now what you are angry about. And I saw her do it, and I saw her write with anger and whatever, and like, oomph. And then like a couple minutes later, she would like lose some of this, she's still writing, but like less aggressively. And then afterwards, she'd be able to like talk to us about what she was angry about, but without the vibration of overwhelming feeling. And I saw it with my own eyes, right? These are people I care about. I'm helping learn how to regulate and self-soothe their emotions. And so it's effective. And whenever I'm in a crisis, I journal. If I'm having a great week, I might not journal at all. And that's when I've realized that journaling is medicinal for me. Journaling is something that if I wake up and I'm sad about an ex, or I'm missing somebody, or I'm in the anger stage or whatever, the best way to process these things and get them out of your head and your being is to put them on paper. So the reason that this is so effective, and I want to give it a little analogy, so visualize this with me if you can. But when you're trying to remember someone's phone number and you're like, 555-777-8888, like in your head, and you're reciting it because you can't forget it. You have to get to a place where you can write it down so that it's out of your head, right? And until you find that place to write the number down, you're like 555, 77, like you're reciting it in your head, and it's like it's an anxiety about holding this thing in your head. Now, when you get a piece of paper and you write down that phone number, 555-777-8888, you hear that? That was your body relaxing, because now that thing that you were holding in your head is now on paper, safely on paper. You're not going to lose it. It's there. You don't need to hold it so tightly. That relief you get is similar to journaling when you're in a painful experience, right? So if you are going through a breakup and you are having all of the feelings that go with it, and you don't have a lot of people to talk to, or even if you do, the journal is going to be your best friend, because it's the same relief, in my experience, of when you're trying to get that phone number anxiety out, and then you write it down and it's gone, of when you're crying over something and you're upset over something and you write it down, like, you did this is how I felt, I'm angry at you for this. After that, you've literally released it. You've released it from your head, even though you could still think about it. There's an energetic charge that has actually been transferred out of your body and onto the paper, and then basically just transmuted, like it's just put into like a neutral state on paper. And I think it's a really powerful, energetic life hack, because you don't even need to know how it works. You don't even need to believe in anything mystical. You just need to get a pen and a paper and open your mind. And the next time you're really upset or sad, why am I sad at the top? And then start writing, right? And so sometimes the most helpful things for me is to write what I'm grateful for in a journal, as a way of just saying, okay, yeah, I might be going through a breakup, but I'm grateful for the following. I'm grateful I have a safe home to live in while I'm in this recovery phase. I'm grateful I have my own job and income, right? Not everyone going through a breakup is stable. A lot of people have to suddenly find new housing or a whole new way of earning, an income and supporting themselves. And that can add so much trauma on top of trauma. So, I'm putting these things in a journal, and I'm reminding myself when I read them that, yeah, this could have been worse, So journaling is just one of those things where, when I personally am having a crisis moment of distress, or I'm suddenly overwhelmed with a bad feeling, like if I got triggered because I saw a picture of me and my ex or something, the first thing I would do with instinct is get my journal and start writing. And this is going to be a bit of a gross analogy, but how when you have that nauseous feeling and you think you're going to throw up, and your instinct, if you're not available at a toilet, is to grab a bucket? The same feeling for me as when I'm upset, to grab my journal, because I'm going to need it to get that out. It's essentially emotionally vomiting onto the paper, and then it's at least out of your body. If you don't believe me, then try it. See it for yourself. Rule it out after you've given it a fair shot, right? I think the best life hacks are the ones that you don't need to spend money on. You don't need to worry about how, methods or whatever. How you journal is up to you. There is things that you can Google to be like, how to journal your thoughts out, how to journal your pain out, and get some helpful prompts and things like that. There's even journal classes. Like, you guys can you join a little group and people journal together with somebody going over prompts. Like, I've done these things. I did one by Zoom, where a bunch of us were like in our bedrooms on our webcams and we had our journals and we would just go in a circle and talk about like prompts. And then she would go silent for 5 minutes while we journaled and then we would reflect after. So journaling is a beautiful practice and there's a lot you can go and do with it if you find it helpful. Journaling, you got to journal that pain out, man. It's one of the most effective methods there is. Life hack 11. It's time to block them. There comes a time when it's time for you to realize what is best for you might not be what feels comfortable or what feels good. And what I'm talking about in this case is when it's time to actually block your ex, your boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, whatever, on social media. Now, this is an extreme step. Not everyone needs to go this far depending on how you're handling the breakup. But let's just be honest. Every single time you go and you take a peek at their profile picture or you see them show up as a suggested friend on Instagram because you share mutual friends, it's re-triggering. And even if you think, okay, you can handle it, check in with yourself and ask yourself how your healing's going. Because if you still feel sad and you still feel triggered and you still feel melancholy at least once a day, then you are still being impacted by the breakup. And some of the hardest things you can do are the things that you need to do that are best for yourself. And one of those things is to cut off your access. Because if you have a problem snooping or if you have a problem, out of curiosity, checking to see what their new story is, because you can't let that whole circle thing go around their profile picture without you clicking on it, then you are still being impacted by your addiction to the chemicals involved in this breakup. So what do I mean by chemicals involved? Brain chemicals, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin. These are feel-good chemicals, things like that. But when you get attached to somebody, you are looking for the positive feelings that you had with them to return. And instead you have the grief, the sadness, the despair, the yearning, and all of that. And so you need to be able to cut the cord of emotion between you and your ex. And it can be hard. It can be excruciating to actually click the button that says block. But after about a couple hours, hopefully at least a few days, that will be when the peace sets in, the peace of, oh, I want to go look, but I can't. You kind of just get rid of those urges. They kind of go away bit by bit, just like any other addiction. You can slowly wean off to the point where eventually you just don't even think about checking their socials anymore, because why would you when you can't, right? So I do have to show some empathy on this topic because, man, is it hard. Is it hard to look at someone you loved who has turned into a stranger or even a villain in your life story, and you need to do your best to block and protect your own energy from the pain? So I'm here to tell you that, yeah, you might not be ready right now when you're listening to this to block them, but I hope that this at least plants a seed for your own sake, that if you keep waking up crying still about your ex and you're not already blocking them, then you might as well listen to the advice I've given you, because your healing journey is not kicking ass, right? So what do you got to lose other than, hey, if it's not working out, try blocking them, go a week. Do you still cry as much? Do you still get triggered as much? And check in with yourself. So that's my advice. I've had to do this when I didn't want to do it, and it'll be unemotional. You'll have the separation, the cord cutting, energetic, severing of a cord with somebody is usually felt on a different level by everyone involved. So it's one of those moments that will almost rehash the pain, but at least this way, the days forward will be brighter, and every single day and every week that comes when you're not looking at your ex's profile will be a step in the right direction of your own personal healing. And honestly, some people are like, well, what if they come back? Well, you know what? Deal with that if it happens. There's no point in solving a problem that doesn't exist, right? And especially with whatever information you have at the moment is going to be different if and when they ever do come back. So you would have to make a different decision at that time anyways, based on new variables or new factors. So it would be not only irrelevant, but like unnecessary to make a decision on anything that isn't actually a pending issue. So close the door, block them. For me, I can just block them on socials. I don't need to always block them on phone. But if they're aggressive, if they're trying to get you back and they're unhealthy for you, then you do need to block them on your phone as well. Life hack 12. Cry your eyes out, then do it again. So I understand that crying has some stigma if you're male or if somebody who, comes across as tough or whatever, but there's just no way around it. You need to be able to cry to get the pain out.
You need to be able to release pain through your tears, to release your sadness through your tears. What happens if you don't? I am living proof of this. I don't want to go too much into my own personal details here, but I spent a lot of my years dealing with antidepressants and I got pretty numbed out, and I wasn't actually pretty much able to cry for a long time, but I also wasn't able to feel the highs and lows of life. So it was like, it was like a package deal. But when I went through heartbreak, I wasn't able to actually really go and release those things that I needed to do. And so it was only after I came off those medicines years later that I actually remembered I started to cry again in life. And then I started to cry a lot in life. And I was like, whoa, I didn't realize I was so sensitive. But the truth is, crying is a very important release. And without the ability to let your body shed the feelings that you're experiencing, you're bottling them up. And nothing good comes from bottling up those intolerable feelings. If you don't want to cry in public, I'm not going to lie, I don't have the choice but to cry in public when I'm really sad. I'm just a very sensitive person. And so if I'm going through a breakup, the people at Tim Hortons might know about it because I might have sad eyes, right? Like I just cry because I'm sad. So there's some of us that just cry at the drop of a hat and like it's not that big of a challenge. And there's some people who almost need permission to cry or sometimes a little bit of help to open up the floodgates, right? So that's why some people listen to sad songs or songs that remind them of somebody that they're yearning over or missing. And one of the other parts of this is that you could even just go and cry in the shower. I mean, there's already water coming down on you. No one's around. You're alone. You can make sounds. You can just let it out. So you might cry a lot at the beginning, especially when it's a really tough breakup or you're like mourning over the loss of someone. So much so that you might wonder if you'll ever stop crying again. Right. And it can take a while and you need to do the work to heal yourself. But the ability to cry and let those feelings out is productive. Those are productive tears. Now, if you're just melancholy and crying, all the time while you're missing your ex without doing any work to heal yourself, that's not going to be that productive. You're kind of just in quicksand of sadness. So you need to know the difference between allowing yourself to grieve through crying, through tears, and then also being almost an emotional masochist and just sitting in the pain because you don't know how to do anything else. I heard a saying once about sad breakup songs about how they hurt so good. And I've never heard people say like hurt so good. What do you mean hurt so bad? But sometimes you're looking to have that feeling so that you can get those, tears out. So there's resources out there if you're having trouble with this, but don't be ashamed to let it out. I go to the park and sit there on the grass sometimes, and sometimes I just can't help it, but process a heavy emotion while I'm sitting there. And I have learned not to be embarrassed. I might throw my sunglasses on so I don't make a scene or something, but I'm like, no, this is just natural. This is letting the waves of grief and emotion come over you and release out of you so that you can breathe and, keep going. So cry. And then rinse, repeat, meaning cry again until you just slowly start to reduce the amount of tears that you actually have to contribute to what it is that you're mourning. So don't be afraid to cry, and don't be afraid to cry a lot, because there might be a lot of pain and it might take some time for all those tears to come out. So give yourself grace, get yourself some 3-ply tissue if you can, spoil yourself, and do your best. By the way, I know this is such a shameless throw, but I do have an Amazon storefront, and the link is in the description of this podcast. I have a list there called Breakup Survival Kit. And if you click on that, I will put in the best tissue out there that is going to be nice to your nose and your eyes, right? And maybe some goodies and snacks and, some really funny adult coloring books that I think are just really hilarious, but also productive when you've got some anger to get out about your ex. So I'll put a link in the description, but go ahead. It is an affiliate link. So that means if you do make any purchases, I will get a small commission, but that is also a way that you could support this podcast. I'm going to ask you to also review this podcast anywhere you listen to it and just give it a 5-star. Let people know that it's worth listening to and that maybe there's something in this podcast that can help them. Thank you.
Life hack 13. Too nauseous to eat? Do this instead.
When you're not feeling well and you're laying in bed, maybe you've got the flu or something and you haven't been eating for a few days and your whole body can feel tired and lethargic and you just don't have the energy?
Everyone around you is like, just eat something, make sure you eat something. And sometimes you lose your appetite and you lose the ability to basically eat because it makes you feel nauseous, right? And so one of the things that happens to some people in the middle of a traumatic experience, including breakups, is they'll either have one of two directions: complete loss of appetite and like nausea, or they'll start to use food to cope. And sometimes that can result in a lot of significant weight gain in a short amount of time. So, me personally, I have a loss of appetite and I actually get nauseous at the sight or the thought or the smell of food for at least a few days after a breakup. And one of the things that I've learned is the longer I sit and stew in my own sadness without eating, the longer it takes to feel like I can get back up from that state. And so, one of the last breakups, I realized that it was because I wasn't eating. I didn't have enough energy to even be sad, let alone go and do something active with my body. And I realized that once I started to supplement my nutrition, like for example, for me, I use smoothies. I go to, a local smoothie shop and I get a couple of them and I put them in my fridge. Sometimes I'll throw one in my freezer so I can pull it out whenever I need to and thaw it out and drink it. And I get like extra protein added to them so that it's actually making my body feel like it's getting something. And so I basically survive off smoothies, even if I eat absolutely nothing else for days. But what I noticed is when I started to actually care about my nutrition, even though I was going through this nauseous phase, it made it easier to get through. There's just something about you need energy. You need energy that is provided by the food you put into your body in order to even be sad, in order to even lift your arms up because it takes so much energy to move your body around. Think about if you're having trouble getting yourself up and around your house because you don't have enough energy. Imagine how heavy that sadness is. Imagine how heavy that grief is. So what you need to do is find your life hack into your nutrition. So what for me it's smoothies because no matter what I can always enjoy a sip of a smoothie. But if it's something else like soup or a certain cracker that you can manage to get down once in a while, pick your item that is your nutrition emergency and find a way to actually eat those things and put it into your body even when you don't feel like it. Because you need to have strength to fight sadness, to fight despair, to fight loneliness. You need strength or you're going to just submit or surrender to the darkness, and frankly that can take you into a really dark place for a long time mentally. So make sure you are doing something to get that nutrition in. Again, smoothies are a great idea. So sometimes people need to use certain substances to give them an appetite. If that's, I know that certain cancer patients, when they're on chemo drugs, sometimes need to do something to boost an appetite. And so I smoke weed every day. It's legal in Canada. So, and it does. It can make you have an appetite even when you otherwise weren't hungry. So if you're desperate times and you don't know how to get your body to start welcoming food and nutrition again, maybe it's time to smoke half a joint or something and see if that helps. Again, I'm not trying to suggest people do drugs if they don't want to do drugs. I think weed is a medicine more than a drug. And it is one of the things that can help bring an appetite back, even if it is otherwise gone. So take care of your body and take care of your energy levels because this is going to take a lot out of you and you need to power up. Life hack 14. Remind yourself who they actually are, not your fantasy version of them. One of the best life hacks in order to continuously remind yourself that the person you have broken up with or ended a relationship with, whose ever decision it was, you need to be able to remind yourself in those tough times the truth about this person. And sometimes we have this fantasy version in our head of who we thought they were or the person that they actually conveyed themselves to be. And so we hold on to this future hope of maybe that person will come back, maybe that person exists and we'll have that future together. And in reality, maybe those things that are in your fantasy list are actually now impossible to have happen because of what has happened in your relationship. And so you don't want to hold on to a fantasy future with somebody that actually isn't even possible, right? And so what I recommend is go to your phone or use a piece of paper and a pen and write at the top who they actually are. And everybody's list is going to look different, but I want you to write down the hard and fast truth, the things that you don't even want to hear, when you're trying to justify the relationship, when you're still working it out. These are the things you block out. But after you've broken up, these are the things you need to write down. So did they cheat on you? Write that down. Did they lie to you? Write that down. Were they not able to fulfill your needs? Write that down. Whatever it is that makes it on your list is going to be very personal to you, right? I remember one of my ex-boyfriends, I wrote down on the list, he made me feel nervous when he was in a bad mood. And I don't like feeling that way around somebody, right? And I just remember one time I was in an Uber with him, and he was just, there was something about his attitude that I felt like I had to just sit there and like be quiet and just like try not to make it get any worse. And I just remember that feeling of walking on eggshells with a partner and writing that down on the list of, I don't want to walk on eggshells with a partner. I don't want to walk around scared to provoke them or their reactions or whatever. And so I would write those helpful things down. And so, make your list as long as you need to, add to it if you need to. It can be really personal. He didn't choose you could be written on the list, or he disappointed you left, right, and center, or, he would fake a future with you. And then when it would come time to, move towards that future, he wouldn't do it. And so you need to be able to write this list down so that in your moments of weakness, in your moments of, how bad was it? Or should I give him another chance? You can go back and read the list that you wrote to yourself about who this person really is. And so it's hard when somebody comes back a few months later, maybe they want to reconcile. And if it's in your best interest to get back together with them, then do whatever you want. But if it's not, then the way to be able to still stay strong is to remind yourself of this list, to read it over and ask yourself, was I happy? Was I happy with the real person, or was I holding on to a version of this person that doesn't exist and was never real? One of the things that you do in relationships sometimes is you put your partner on a pedestal, and there's nothing wrong with falling head over heels in love, that's for sure. But when it's time to break up, you need to be able to make that person, come down off that pedestal and shine a light, the light of truth and honesty on them, and document what actually happened. What did they do? How did they make you feel? And keep it, because you're going to need to refer to it later. Life hack 15. Tango with the stages of grief. Don't expect to evolve through them. So there's usually 5 stages of grief that people go through when they're grieving the end of a relationship. There's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. One of the most helpful life hacks is to manage your expectations on your healing journey so that you don't think that you're not progressing in the right way or you're disappointing yourself if you seem to jump around from the different stages of grief instead of evolving through them. If you think that you're going to graduate from denial to then go to anger, and then graduate from anger to go to bargaining, and then graduate through depression and so on, yeah, that is a very nice one-way flow through the grief process, but that is not typical. And so, yes, you might face a lot of denial initially at the first part of a breakup, but you could revisit anger many times. You could bypass anger, get to depression, go back to anger again. Then you could have a brief period of some acceptance, and then you might get to the point of sadness, depression again. So you really need to manage your expectations, and don't be hard on yourself if you do transition from a stage of grief to another stage of grief, even if it's one that you thought you were past. So yes, I've gone through anger phases after the end of a breakup, then I move on, whatever. And then sometimes, depending on what happened, I might have seen a photo of them with someone new, and then I get angry again, right? And I'm like, well, wait, does that mean that my healing didn't work? And does that mean that I failed the process? No, it doesn't. It means that you have to manage your expectations and don't judge yourself by navigating in what I like to refer to as tangoing with the stages of grief, because you need to not expect progression through them as a one-way street. You will probably get to the end of acceptance and then be able to fully accept a breakup and move on. So you could end up with a conclusion at acceptance, but don't be surprised if you go back to then denial or bargaining or depression, or all of them at once or all of them in the same day. It depends on how you process this breakup. So I think it's important to discuss the different stages of grief so that you know what they are. Denial, this is the initial shock where it's hard to accept that the relationship has ended, and you might find yourself replaying memories and hoping things will go back to how they were. Anger, you might feel frustrated, resentful, or angry towards yourself, your ex, or the situation. These emotions are normal and part of processing the loss. Bargaining,
You might think about what you could have done differently or even hope for reconciliation. It's a way of trying to regain control and make sense of the situation. Bargaining is an interesting phase because sometimes you'll bargain with your own mind what you're willing to like put up with in order to like maybe stop the pain of the breakup. Like maybe you bargain with yourself, oh, could I handle the fact that this person cheated on me? Can I handle the fact that this happened, right? And so that bargaining phase isn't even just with the other person. Sometimes it's with yourself. Depression, sadness, loneliness, and a sense of loss often set in. It's important to allow yourself to feel these emotions as they are a natural part of the healing. And then acceptance. So over time, you begin to accept the reality of the breakup. This does not mean the pain is gone, but you do start to feel more at peace with the situation and look forward to the future. So I did rely on ChatGPT to get a list of the stages of grief so I could give them to you as clear as possible. But the most important life hack is to manage your own expectations and don't be hard on yourself if you go back or if you regress from one stage of grief to a prior one, because it is a dance, not an evolution.
Life hack 16. Contrast can give us perspective.
So one of the first things I started doing during my breakups is I would go to Reddit and I would read on all of these different threads about breakups and the no contact method and heartbreak and infidelity. And I would be reading and hearing other people's just heartbreaking, agonizing stories about what they were currently going through. And I did see a lot of supportive comments, so it is a good place to go and feel heard if you do need to get things off your chest. But one of the things that I noticed was how helpful it was for me to see someone else's story that was so much worse in different ways and make me realize that I actually was grateful that my situation wasn't that bad. Let me give you a few examples. I've been through many breakups in my life, and not all of them are the same. Sometimes you are living with somebody and then you suddenly break up, and then you have to worry not just about your heartbreak, but your safety. Where do you live? How do you support yourself? These are things that can compound, right? The traumatic experience a breakup can be on somebody. And so right off the bat, if you aren't living with the person you broke up with and you already have a safe place to live, well, you're ahead of the game compared to a lot of other people out there. There's so many stories that I've read on Reddit where people are like, I was a stay-at-home mom for our kids. My husband cheated on me and then left me for the woman. I don't even have the ability to pay the mortgage or the rent, so I need to figure out how to make money. Then I need to figure out how to get a roof over my kids' heads long term, all while dealing with a tragic and traumatic breakup. Now, I don't know about you, but my situation isn't that bad. So already I kind of just sit there realizing, okay, that girl is going through something really different. And I'm grateful that my situation wasn't that serious. I read another example of a gentleman who said that after he got left by some woman that he really cared about, he said it was less than a week later, he had a stroke and then half of his body was paralyzed, like the left half. And it's bad enough when you break up with someone and, you want your hot girl summer or hot guy summer after you pick yourself back up off the floor. What if you have a debilitating, life-altering injury, accident, health issue? And not only is that person not going to come and be there for you at one of your darkest times, but you might not even know how you're going to take care of yourself or how you're even going to build back from something like that. And I remember seeing these stories when I was just, in my own stuff, my own pain. And I remember thinking, I'm relatively young. I, can pay my own bills. I am an independent woman. Yes, I can get my heart broken, but it doesn't mean that I'm unsafe. I really do think that sometimes it's helpful to look and see other people's struggles and realize that maybe yours isn't as bad. Having said that, if you're one of those cases where it is that bad, I'm sorry. That's tough. Get supports, get mental health supports, reach out to friends, reach out to family if you've got it, because this is enough to break a person, enough to make a person reach out in even unpredictable ways, right? For substances or things to try and cope with pain. And so I really do want to encourage people out there who are struggling in the most serious of cases to throw everything you've got at your healing, throw everything you've got at it, because once you climb out of something like that, you will forever be stronger you will forever realize that you're a survivor. So, by the way, I do have Instagram and Facebook for breakup memes. It is literally meant for your doom scrolling needs when you're in that phase of, I need to see a quote that resonates and I'm going to hit like on a bunch of them. And that's me talking to the universe in a way, right? Right. So I've actually, compiled so many of these. The link is in the description of this podcast. But yes, you can go to those places and you can go and just find relatable content that makes you realize that you're not alone. Others are in this pain or have seen this pain. And the good news is there is a support system online. And sometimes other people's stories can just make us realize that we're going to be okay. Our story isn't as bad.
Life hack 17. Missing physical touch? Here is a quick solution.
Sometimes when you go through a breakup, it's the first time your physical body doesn't get touched, doesn't get not only hugged or made love to or anything like that, not even touched, not even brushed up against. Sometimes when you break up with somebody, they were your intimate partner. And so you might go a couple days, a couple weeks, a couple months until you realize that you are absolutely starved for physical touch. I've seen some people who were even in lonely relationships. So people who weren't even broken up with, but in lonely relationships who were also touch starved, to the point where I saw them get emotional when one of my friends went over and hugged them and gave them some warmth. So I understand that some people can be absolutely deficient in physical touch. And so what do you do if you don't have somebody who you actually necessarily even want to hug from, right? Here's 2 quick solutions. One of them is a heating pad. If you want to go to my Amazon storefront, which by the way, I do have a link in the description of this podcast. It is an affiliate link, but I did put together some necessities to help you through a breakup survival, and you can get that link in the description. But a heating pad, when you turn it on, set it up to a warm temperature, and just lay it on your back while you're laying in bed. And it can actually stimulate the feeling of physical warmth, right? Because it feels like somebody's almost hugging you when you get the bunch of warmth going across your back. Right? Then you can just move it where you need it. Do you need it on your chest for a while? Sometimes I fall asleep with it on a low setting, so at least I feel like I'm grabbing onto warmth. So a heating pad, most people already have one on hand. If not, again, go to my Amazon storefront or a local place you can get one for yourself. That's a really good solution. The other solution is to go and get a massage. You can go if you have benefits for your work or whatnot, or even if you just want to spend some money on yourself, go and book a massage with a massage therapist. These people will put their hands on you. They will put their hands on your arms, your legs, your belly, wherever you need them to. I remember after I was going through a breakup, it was like a year ago. And it had been a few months since I had anyone touch me really, like maybe a few hugs here and there. And I booked a massage and I went and laid down and I even cried on the massage table. I don't know if she even noticed because I was that touch starved and I couldn't believe that, like, for me, that was like maintenance, like physical health maintenance, so that I could go another few months without being touched again. So yeah, so massage therapy is a great solution if you can afford it. If not, and you can, find a friend that wants to trade massages, that can also help too. But yeah, these were really great life hacks that helped me out, and I hope that they help you.
Life hack 18. Count the days. Learn best practices from recovering alcoholics.
One of the first things I do when I go through a breakup is I start going into the no contact method. This is a proven strategy to help people not only cope with a breakup, but also start to feel empowered while surviving it, right? And so there's so much research out there on the no contact method. If you go to my webpage, TorontoUnicorn.com, I have a link in the description of this podcast for this episode, because every episode has its own webpage there, and you can actually get additional links to other people's YouTube videos, not even my content, someone else's content that's super valuable on the topics that are related to the episode. So for this one, I'll put some no contact method videos there as well. But basically, the point of no contact is to go completely cold, get like a break in addiction, an addiction to a person, an addiction to, your relationship. And so that means that you don't contact them, you don't wish them a happy birthday, you don't look at their Instagram or their Facebook here and there. You just cut yourself off as effectively as an alcoholic would cut off alcohol if they were going to be sober. You don't see alcoholics, not a lot of them, successfully quitting drinking by taking little sips lots of alcohol all throughout the day, right? They have to just go cold turkey, is the phrase. And so what a lot of recovering alcoholics do is they have a chip in their pocket that they carry that says how many days they've been, sober. And they are so damn proud of that chip, as they should be, right? Same with other recoveries, right? Not just alcohol. And they might get tempted here or there for a drink, but if they're 180 days sober and they have a bad day and they know that if they have a drink, they have to reset that count down to zero and start again. It is motivating. Trust me, it's motivating. I'm proof and point. No, I'm not an alcoholic, but I do this for breakups and it's helpful. So start counting when your last contact was with somebody. That's your start of the no contact. And then you start counting how many days has it been? One day, then it turns into a couple days, then it's a week, then it's a few weeks. And when you're struggling, you can look down and see, okay, I've made it, 13 days and 12 hours so far. If I reach out now just to say I miss them, I'll have to hit that, button back to zero, and then I might feel stupid, and then I'm back to my healing journey, especially if they don't respond, right? And then, you kind of have to go back to zero and start again. And so it can be kind of, detrimental to our own progress to have a slip up or, a slip here and there. And so I do find that counting the days that you've been in no contact, counting the days that you've been surviving a breakup or, surviving the no contact method is a brilliant strategy that definitely works. So my friend who quit smoking, she told me the same thing. She had a thing in her calendar that would go up until I think it was 2 years. After that, she stopped counting by day and she started counting by year. But she would look at that every time she wanted a cigarette and be so proud of the number growing. Like, how many, pretty soon it was like 300 days, no cigarettes. As much as you want a cigarette, how badly do you want that cigarette if it means you lose 300 days of progress, right? Like it might not win out every time, you might slip up here and there, but when you do and you reset the clock down to zero, you'll remember why you don't want to do that again. So sometimes we do have to learn the hard way. But luckily, this life hack to count the days of no contact, count the days you're surviving this breakup will show you that time is moving. Because sometimes you don't know time is moving. When you're stuck in grief and sadness, a day, a week, a month could all feel the same. And you need to know that time's moving and that you are going to be surviving something even if you feel like you're not moving forward. And sometimes just seeing that you physically survived, like the first 30 days, for example, of a breakup, can be reassuring that you're going to be okay, even if it really sucks still, even if you're really sad still. A month is serious. 2 months is serious. 3 months, once you're 6 months in, I hope that you'll be doing at least a lot better. Like, let's be honest, we don't know. Some people recover at different paces. But count the days, give yourself some months. Give yourself some months to get back on your feet. Don't be shortchanging yourself there. I don't think it works very effectively.
Life hack 19. Be grateful for what you learned and document it.
I know it sounds like a cliche to be like, you're in your shittiest time of your life and you're like, so what are you grateful for? But the truth is it's a life hack. It's a life hack to look at a really tough situation through a different lens, just as valid of a lens, and find the things that you actually are grateful for. Find the lessons that you learned about yourself, about your ability to be in a relationship. Maybe you learned where some of your triggers were. Maybe you learned that you have an anger issue and you got to work on that. There's lots of things that you can dissect or do an emotional autopsy of a relationship that's over and say, hey, I got some good shit out of this. Like, let's just put a list together. Are you grateful that you learned that you could fall in love again or at all, right? Some people don't know if they're ever going to find someone out there. So if you do find someone and you feel those really strong, powerful feelings of love, yeah, it sucks when it's gone, but at least you're able to do it. At least you felt it. At least you know it's possible out there for you. So that's something I'd be grateful for, is that, I was reminded that I could feel love and that I could be in love. That's something I would put on the list. Some of the lessons you learn could be very shocking. It could be that, the lesson is that you put up with too much. Maybe at the end of a relationship, you, with a few days or weeks sober, emotionally sober, you look back and you realize that you let some things slide or you moved some of your personal boundaries for someone else to try and be a good partner maybe, or for whatever reason, maybe you were people pleasing. And maybe you just want to reflect on how you feel about that. And with the next relationship that you get in, would you want to still move those same boundaries or would you want to enforce them, right? And I think sometimes you learn what you need in a relationship. Like, for example, I have sensitivity to men being angry and like loud and whatever. We could go into therapy if you want about why, but it doesn't matter. I need to be with a male partner who is not going to yell and scare me. I need a male partner who is more even tempered than that. And I'll know real quick if I'm dating some guy and he blows up or loses his shit on me in a way that makes me feel unsafe for even a moment, that would not be a partner that's compatible with me. So I'm looking for someone who's got his anger issues under control for the most part. I mean, not everyone does, but that's the one I'm looking for. I also learned in relationships, the most recent one for me, I learned that I do not want a polyamorous relationship. I dipped my toe into a world where there was multiple romantic relationships at the same time, and I didn't really feel like it was a good fit. So for me, I'm excited. I don't feel restricted by going back to monogamy or monogamish. I'm excited to go and announce on my next dating profile that I'm looking for that. It's also important to realize, did you date somebody with kids? Did you date somebody who had an ex or an ex-wife or an ex-husband? Maybe that gave you some trauma. So maybe the next time you're in a relationship, you kind of do a little bit of a scan in the conversation and see what kind of ex drama there is so that you can decide right from the beginning if you want to invest something like in that, right? So sometimes you learn the red flags too with people. You can learn some shocking things, some lessons that are absolutely heartbreaking, but still very valuable to learn. One of the lessons I've had to learn in this lifetime is that people are very good at lying to my face sometimes. I'm an intuitive person. I actually feel like I read energy really well, but I've realized that reading energy and intentions is actually different than somebody lying if their intentions are still good. So it's one of those things, it's a little bit of a nuance there, but I have realized that as good as I think I am at being able to tell when people are being truthful, I was recently shown wrong and that I have to realize that. That's a great lesson. Yeah, it sucks to be like, oh yeah, no, people might pull some shady shit on you, but at least I'm ready for it. At least I got the lesson. So that's what I mean. Write down these lessons, look for the gratitude in what you've learned. And hopefully, if you take these lessons with you and hold them close, you don't have to keep repeating them in your next relationship, right? So I know what I'm looking for in my next relationship. I think I've got it dwindled down pretty precisely now. And that's a benefit of all my past relationships, and everything I've learned in combination or accumulation of them all has gotten me to where I am today. So be grateful for the lessons, and in a weird way, be grateful for the pain, because also learning how to heal, learning how to pick yourself back up again when you've been knocked down in life is also one of the biggest things to be grateful for, is that sense of resilience. So be grateful. Even just acknowledging you're grateful for your support system, you're grateful for the fact that you have a safe bed to cry in. Even if you're sad, hey, at least you have a bed to cry in. Some people don't, right? So there's lots of things that you can look at in your life and be grateful for. And I want you to write them down. Don't just let them come like clouds across your mind and then drift off. Write them down. Reread this. Two weeks from now or 3 weeks from now, reread it and be like, yeah, I am grateful I learned that about myself. I am grateful that I had these experiences because it made me a better, more prepared person for love and real relationships. And at the end of the day, if the biggest lesson that you can take from your whole situation is that, hey, you can count on yourself. You can be there for yourself when you're sad, when you're struggling. And then you don't have to be so scared about the future, because no matter what happens, you've got your own back.
Life hack 20. Struggling to let go? This is probably why. So I am big on understanding when it comes to a breakup, especially one that feels pretty final, that you need to do whatever you can to let go of that relationship for your own benefit. Even if one day that person does come back, it does not help you to sit in a state of idle or anxiety until they do. It does not. So it's in your best interest to move the F on and let go of that relationship, let go of the pain. And I have done a lot of different experimental techniques to try and help let go. I visited energy healers, shamans who do official cord cutting exercises and rituals. And it was helpful, by the way. It was helpful. But there's layers of connection and contact that you have with people, and you need to take it off in layers as well when you're disconnecting. In old relationships years ago, I'd like write something like goodbye to them, and I'd like throw it in a bottle in the ocean. I wouldn't do that now, by the way, because of littering. But I have actually let balloons go into the sky while saying goodbye to people. I have done physical things to try and let go of people because it's so hard to let go of people. Like right after the balloon goes to the sky, 5 minutes later, I'm back in my head with all the rumination about the breakup. Why did it happen that way? So yes, I'm trying to let go. And why is it not really working? Well, one of the reasons that I've realized recently is because you have to be able to realize that you are not just grieving the loss of a relationship, a friend, a person that was important to you in your life. You're losing your future hopes and dreams that were associated with them. You're grieving for a loss of those memories you didn't make, those vacations you didn't take, those adventures you just never quite got around to doing. And so not only do you have to let go of your past memories, you have to let go of your future ones that were never realized. This can be just as sad as letting go of existing memories. And so another way to also help let go of your future hopes, dreams, memories with someone is to be able to start to visualize a future without them that is happy, peaceful, whatever it is that's in your goal list. You need to be able to picture it in your imagination, in your manifestation, visualizations, whatever it is. Picture yourself happy, even if you're alone. Picture yourself doing something for yourself, coming home at the end of the day, making yourself something to eat, having a relaxing night. And you know what? Not sitting in your sadness because you're single. Sometimes being single is peaceful. I remember I spent 10 years single after a major breakup a long time ago, and I got pretty comfortable having a pretty stable existence, right? I didn't have anybody upsetting me a lot in life. Like I was just doing my own thing, and I noticed that it was pretty fucking peaceful, right? Then you bring love in the mix, and suddenly it's emotional regulation is back on my to-do list for my therapist. Anyways, I digress. So letting go of the future is so important, and the way to do that is to build a new future in your head, a beautiful new visualization of what you want to do, how do you want to feel, and forget about that person. That person doesn't have to be in this image, in this visualization. It's just about you. So if you're going to try and get through this breakup by just letting go of, burning pictures of you guys together or deleting chat histories, yeah, that's one way and it's helpful, but it's not sufficient. You also need to let go of your unlived future together, as hard as that may be. Life Hack 21, your secret weapon against rumination and intrusive thoughts.
So just to be clear, rumination is the repetitive behavior or pattern of thinking, which is often linked to negative feelings. And this is usually in a breakup. It's contextually about the breakup. It's thinking about your ex, thinking about the last conversation you had, thinking about the future conversations you'd like to have, and no break from this line of thought. It just haunts you. It goes to the grocery store in your head with you. Like it's there. Rumination is tough. It's very tough. And intrusive thoughts are similar. I get those as an ADHD brain sometimes. Sometimes you just don't want to let yourself go to a certain place of thinking about certain things so that you don't hurt yourself, right? So it's not helpful to picture your ex sexually with a new partner. That's just like self-harm if you think about it, unless you're healed, right? So these can be intrusive thoughts if you feel like you're seeing these things in your mind's eye or like you're thinking about them and you don't really want to be, right? This is something I personally have struggled with for sure. And I'm going to tell you, and first of all, you'll notice by my tone that I'm a bit mentally lazy when it comes to meditation. I have an ADHD brain. It thinks fast, and I don't really adapt well to a lot of the meditations or things like that. Like I've tried, I'll do it for a couple of minutes and then I'm be like just itching to like go do something else. I struggle, right? And so the reason that I am going to introduce the real secret weapon with laughter, honestly, is because it's the only thing that made me do it. And it's mindfulness meditation. So mindfulness meditation, it redirects our attention to the present experience. This can actually help shift the ruminating behavior in our heads, and we can actually intervene in the present moment. It also focuses on behavior such as acceptance and openness, compassion, and especially non-judgment. So you're not supposed to judge the thoughts in your head. With mindfulness, you're not supposed to get mad at yourself if you have a thought while you're supposed to be meditating. That's the part I struggle with because I'm like, like get with it, like, shut up in my head, right? And like stop thinking, but like you can't stop thinking. So the important thing is to not get mad at the thinking, to just watch the thinking, like beautiful little puffy clouds going across the sky at a pace, and eventually they just drift out of your sight. That's mindfulness meditation in terms of like looking at your thoughts. And so you don't have to get upset that you're having a negative thought, but what you could do is just focus on the fact that it's temporary, don't judge it, and let it slowly drift out and be processed through. And then the next thought comes in. I love that mindfulness is super huge in terms of healing melody for people. This is a huge thing you could do. It's free. You do it in your own brain. And you know what? If you aren't yet on board with mindfulness meditation and then you go through a breakup and cannot get a moment of peace without being emotionally haunted by your ex, then you might want to decide to look into mindfulness meditation, specifically about your ex or your anger or guilt or grief. Because you can go to YouTube, you can go to podcasts, and you can get people to help walk you through a meditation for those specific themes, right? If you've never found a use for mindfulness meditation before, then this could be its opening, and it is helpful. And here's why: you're not a victim to these thoughts anymore. You're no longer just living life without the ability to control your mind. What it is it gives you a weapon against intrusive thoughts, a weapon against rumination, and an ability to fight back and say, you know what? Thanks for the thought. I'm going to move past it. Now I'm going to focus on what I'm making for dinner. It can be a pivotal choice. You know how you could pivot on your back heel, like pivot on a foot? This is pivotal. You can decide, thank you for the thought for the 15th time today about my ex and the girl he left me for, but I've decided to focus on my Uber Eater now, and so you can actually shift. I'm never going to be a teacher on mindfulness. I just think that I'm struggling as much as anybody else would with a similar brain. But when it comes to ruminating thoughts about your ex, sometimes you're desperate AF to like get some help. And so mindfulness meditation can give you the space you need to have a break from that haunting experience. So mindfulness meditation, it can be there for you when you need help with intrusive thoughts, ruminating about your ex, ruminating about the pain. It's not always helpful to sit and, circle around the same topics over and over, right? So at least with mindfulness meditation, you have a weapon, you have, a fighting chance against these things, and you can, meet yourself in the present moment and decide whether or not you're going to take control or not.
Life hack 22, create your own dopamine menu.
For anyone who doesn't know, dopamine is a neurotransmitter in our brains that regulates our body's pleasure and reward systems. In other words, it's our feel-good chemical in our brain. And so sometimes we will go and reach for things because they give us a certain pleasure, not knowing we're actually just looking for dopamine. We're looking for a dopamine hit. Dopamine can come in so many different ways. Some people use food, some people use sex, some people use their hobbies or like playing with their dog or playing a video game, whatever it is that gives people pleasure, they go and seek those things out, right? And so one of the things that when you're struggling with grief and heartbreak, you can forget, you can lose some joy in the things that you once felt joy for. That's something, in the depression phase specifically about that you might struggle with. But sometimes you have trouble getting yourself to feel better. You're laying in bed, you're in that bed rot stage, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what I want. So this is where a dopamine menu comes in handy, and you can design it. This is actually a thing that for a lot of ADHD people, they recommend because you have it listed like appetizers and like mains and desserts. And so appetizers are like little quick hits of dopamine. So having a tea or playing with your pet or coloring a picture or doing a crossword puzzle, listening to a certain song, putting a face mask on your face, making your bed, changing your sheets, standing outside in the sun, watering your plants, doodling, doing jumping jacks, things like that. And so for the mains, there's lots of options here that are a bit more of a commitment of time. But one of them is, hey, if you like cooking a meal or your favorite meal, why don't you take a workout class? You could go and watch one of your old favorite movies, read a book. You could reorganize your closet. So these are things that also give you that happy, feel-good feeling after you've done them, right? Or doing them. Some of the side options could be listening to a podcast episode, lighting a candle, calling a friend, playing with a fidget toy, listening to an audiobook, doing a puzzle. So for desserts, these are things like buying yourself a sweet treat or online shopping or doing yourself something nice, a little special snack or a scroll through social media for a while. Those can just be light things that you do for a little hit here and there. And then there's this thing at the bottom for specials that you should be adding, and it is for the big things like planning a vacation, going to a concert, seeing a comedy show, buying a new outfit, going and actually taking a class, taking a filmmaking class, going to a paint class, doing a random act for kindness, getting a manicure and pedicure. So these are things that are a bit bigger, and they also offer a bigger hit of dopamine, right? So if I'm laying in bed the next time I'm sad and I just don't know what I want to do, I might order from the starter menu a little bit of a snack or something, and then I'll get to my entree. And maybe what I'll do is I don't know, start a new podcast called Life Hack Your Breakup and put my energy in that. True story, though. I actually am in my own struggle. And so creating content is a passion of mine, especially turning pain into purpose. And so this has been a beautiful distraction and something I order off my dopamine menu when I'm having a rough day. I'll be like, well, I guess I could make a podcast episode. So it kind of works. I've been doing it. So sometimes it's helpful to just have it listed, have it written down, the things that give you joy, so that when you're in a tough spot or you're sad or you're emotional about a breakup or heartbreak or whatever, you can look at that list and order a few things off of it. Make yourself feel better. For me, it might be a hot bath with a certain tea I like cream in my tea, so it has to be made the right way, but I want to have a hot tea and a bath and maybe some soft music. That would be a really good half hour for me. So I'm going to order that maybe tonight off my dopamine menu. I will just add a word of caution, though, to be careful to use food and other substances that are not productive. If you keep using food, you're going to gain weight. And then if you start to gain weight, you're going to have more challenges to deal with mentally about your own self-esteem and things like that. So try to not use food as your dopamine hit as much as possible, especially if you struggle with weight gain.
Life Hack 23. ChatGPT, your free on-demand breakup therapy.
So I had to do my personal research on this before I recorded this episode, but I can assure you it is worth your time to look into the ChatGPT or other AI applications that are available. Most of them are free, and you can use it as a person to talk to, even though it's an AI, it's not a real person. What I have found is you can get very good, comprehensive, well-informed advice from this AI bot. And you can do it whenever you're lonely, middle of the night, you open the app and you give it a prompt that says, I need you to walk me through this heartbreak, or I need you to give me advice on a situation. And you lay it out. So I have actually experimented with two different ChatGPT applications. One of them was more text-based. So even though I would do voice to text and I would explain my situation, it would text back. Now, yes, I could have clicked each time and hit speak and it would have spoken it to me, but it did feel a little bit of a different experience doing a texting with an AI versus another app I tried called Pi. And this one was a voice basically only. And so I would speak into it and then the AI would speak back. And I actually did put together a video. I screen recorded myself using this app. I didn't put anything super personal or confidential in it, but if you want to go to my website, I actually have an episode page for every single episode in this Life Hack Your Breakup podcast. So go to episode 23 and I will actually upload there additional content to show that I have experimented with these apps and what the experience was like. So you can get a link to that in the description of this podcast. But basically, I said the following. I'm going through a breakup. I need help processing it. It came back and asked me questions. I would go back and explain the whole dynamic. We broke up this many days ago. These are the circumstances. It would ask me, what are my coping strategies? And I would explain that I was struggling with, anger. And so it would give me advice on how to let anger out. It gave me advice on how to process the inner child wounds and how I must be feeling on the inside after a loss like the one I was facing. And actually, at one moment when I was using it, I teared up because it got to the heartstring of something that I was dealing with. And that's something that is helpful, right? So these are free apps. I know you can pay for the premium version of these apps. So think about if that's what you want. But I think it's worth it. If you've never used AI before and you still are a little bit intimidated by it, I get it. But when you're lonely, when you're sad, when you're grieving, and you don't want to have to Google, how do you process grief and then read all the different people's opinions of it, you can actually just have an AI friend whisper in your ear, metaphorically, how to get through it. And so the next time you're lonely, middle of the night, middle of the day, you can open that app and say, I'm having a hard day. This is what I'm feeling. Can you give me some advice? And even just feeling like you're getting things off your chest, that you're talking to somebody, and maybe you don't have a huge support system, it can be super therapeutic. ChatGPT, I'm telling you, if you've never given it a chance before, now is your time. It is your new on-demand and free breakup therapy. Now, it does have a disclaimer that it's not a real therapist, so you should use it with your own discretion, of course. But when you're struggling, you might not want to pay $100, $200 an hour, wait every couple weeks to go and have an hour to talk about your breakup. Sometimes you would be benefiting from being able to talk about your breakup every day without a big bill at the end, right? I actually learned about this life hack from Reddit and some of the Reddit threads that I follow about breakups and how to survive a breakup. And the idea came to me from reading other people's inspiring stories. So some other people wrote that the ChatGPT or other AI therapy apps help them actually recognize issues and barriers that they were unable to see before in their own selves. One of them said that they were forced to look at themselves in the mirror, metaphorically, in a way that no one had ever, helped inspire them to do. So there's a lot of people talking about breakthroughs that they're having with this AI therapy. So don't forget, you can go to my website, TorontoUnicorn.com. I have a webpage dedicated just to this Life Hack Your Breakup podcast. And on episode 23, you'll get the additional content there to see this GPT therapy in action.
Life hack 24. Forgiveness is for you, not your ex.
One of the first and most powerful lessons I learned on my spiritual and self-healing journey in life was the importance and powerfulness of forgiveness. I was the first person to be like, F that, these people did these terrible things to me and I'm not going to forgive them because that means in some way I accept what happened and that's not true. And I get it. And I stood on my little soapbox metaphorically in life and I went through life with anger and bitterness and resentment. And it came out when I was frustrated in grocery store lineups or if somebody walked too slowly in front of me on the street. In general, I was a pretty miserable person on the inside. And it's just the accumulation of pain in life, the accumulation of people's betrayals or even just slight betrayals or disappointments. And they can really stack up in your soul. And one of the things that I remember doing when I was on my healing journey in life was having a forgiveness exercise. And I had to wait till I was ready. But when I was ready, I went for it. And what I did is I went through every part of my life and forgave every single person that upset me or disappointed me or let me down. And I'm talking people on the schoolyard when I was younger. For example, my friend who stood me up at the talent show and then I never got to actually go and be in any talent show. I forgave her for standing me up. Even though my whole life I always held that as a little bit of resentment towards her, I decided to let it go. I forgave people that maybe never even knew they upset me, but I just held it or something. I forgave my parents for anything that they were not able to do for me. And I forgave ex-boyfriends, ex-friends, whatever. And I forgave every single person, not because they deserve forgiveness, not because what they did was okay, but the reason was because I was no longer going to hold on to it. And so forgiving is letting go. Because if you're not holding that anger, if you're not holding that resentment, then it can dissipate. And so the life hack in this is that you got to learn how to forgive even your breakup. Forgive your ex. Doesn't mean you go back to them. Doesn't mean you even talk to them ever again if they're not good for you. But it doesn't mean you can't forgive them. You can forgive people and still leave them in your past. You can forgive people and still not invite them back into your life. Because forgiveness is not about them. It's about you. And it's about what you want to carry around with you in life. And so after I had that forgiveness exercise where I went through the series of people in my life, I was crying. I remember it was in like a meditative environment, and I was crying because it was so powerful. And then when I kind of like got up and got myself together, went on with my day or whatever, and I never knew at the time, but that was just the biggest day for my journey because I was able to start really healing. I wasn't just holding on to all these resentments. I wasn't holding on to any of this negative energy. And I encourage you to revisit this idea, even if you're not quite ready for it yet, because, for example, if you can go and look at your relationship and forgive somebody for not being a good partner to you, even if they don't say sorry, just forgive them from a distance for not being mature enough, for not being emotionally healthy enough, for not having a stronger backbone where they needed one. I think it's okay to look at a bad situation, even if you don't plan to go back, and say, I forgive that person for not being good for me. I forgive that person for not choosing me. I forgive that person for making a hard choice. Like these are things that they're very hard to do, and you don't necessarily feel ready to forgive right away. But the sooner you get there, the sooner you set yourself free from the feelings that come with holding on to the anger, the bitterness, the resentment. And so once I actually did this healing practice and went on with my life, I noticed that I actually wasn't as irritable going through life. I wasn't as, short fused in the grocery store lineups anymore. And there really was a noticeable impact in my life when I decided to start letting shit go, not because people deserved it, but because I did. And you do too.
Life hack 25, rewrite your story and set yourself free.
One of the hardest things that I learned in therapy was that I actually was responsible for a lot of my own pain in emotional relationships over the years because I would hold on to the story of what happened to me. For example, if I was cheated on, if I was left for someone else, if I was betrayed in multiple ways, or, even if just the love of my life broke up with me and then moved on and found someone else and married them. Like these are all things that have happened, right? And the story of my life. And I would walk around in therapy in my life, and I would tell my story, and then I'd meet new people and I would tell my story. Like, yeah, I've been cheated on. Yeah, this is what happens to me. And one of the things that I realized through therapy was the importance of the fact that we write our story. We write our own story in our own heads, right? We are not just an accumulation of the things that happen to us. We also put a spin on it. Right? And so our default spin might be to absorb the victimhood, might be to wear it almost like a badge of experience in life of, I went through this, right? And I remember about a couple years ago, I had a really hard time getting over a friendship betrayal of a friends with benefits. It wasn't even a romantic partner, but it was a severe betrayal for my emotional friendship. And I remember I was just walking around, ruminating about it for months. And I just couldn't accept the fact that this betrayal had happened. Like, I was like, I can't believe he did this. I can't believe he did this. Like every single day. And my therapist talked to me about how I need to rewrite my story. And instead of just making it that, what is another alternative explanation of events? And so this is a person I don't talk to anymore, a person I haven't talked to in years. But instead of walking around owning that betrayal like I earned it, in the sense of I would feel like I was justified in and carrying that wound and telling people about it because it was just something so serious that I went through. But the power for me came when I realized that I could technically acknowledge that that's what happened, yes, but I could revisit and rewrite my story in a different way that technically does nothing for anyone else. The only thing it does is that it sets me free. It sets me free from the victimhood, from the pain that is connected to that experience, that story. At first, I was really reluctant to give up my story. Like, no, I was betrayed. I was treated terribly, and I'm going to walk around and feel like, holy shit, I can't believe that just happened to me. But my life changes. My life gets less sad, less bitter, less angry when I rewrite the story differently. The reason rewriting your story is useful is because it can actually move you away from stuck, negative, and blaming positions in life into one where you move forward to reach your dreams and goals. So it can help you let go of negativity and allow you to take responsibility for your own life, which frees you from the anger and bitterness.
So when I decided to rewrite my story back then, it was more about deciding that I am a resilient person and that I can withstand friendship betrayal and live to see another day. So if you have just had a terrible breakup, and I mean, this is across the spectrum what could have happened to you, right? But if you were cheated on, if you were left for somebody else, if you were treated terribly, abused, and then they just completely replaced you with a whole new supply, were you emotionally discarded by somebody? Like there's so many ways that you can get your heart broken and have betrayal and carry that around with you. And so instead of, for example, in my life, instead of walking around saying, here I am, this guy freaking cheated on me, this guy, betrayed me like left, right, and center. I could walk around and own that and I could take that story with me, but then I become constantly connected to the pain of that story. And if the story is instead, hey, I survived a really brutal experience with somebody and I'm feeling like I'm going to be able to live and learn. I'm going to be resilient. So instead, the story isn't, oh, this happened to me, this happened to me. It's, look what I survived. Look how I am able to thrive after experiencing something so serious, something so terrible. And so eventually, after you tell yourself this story and remind yourself that you're actually just a resilient person, a resilient survivor, and that maybe you'll just be a little more clear-eyed in the relationships you choose going forward, that's not a terrible story at all. And yet it's based on the same experience, right? And so when you realize that you are the one that's taking the consequence of walking around with the negative, blaming, stuck stories, even if you've earned them, even if you feel like you should never have to let it go because that's what happened to you and you had what, I get it. But you're the only one carrying that fucking baggage. So when you decide that you want to live life instead of the principle of carrying the baggage, how about you just live with less baggage? How about you just let it go? How about you stop getting stuck in the story and rewrite it and give yourself a position of power and see how your world changes? Life hack 26, cord cutting rituals to release emotional ties to your ex. Sometimes when our relationships that used to be loving and fulfilling and safe and warm and fuzzy, they turn into toxic or sad or grief because of a breakup or whatever other reason, we can have a hard time letting go of those strong feelings, those strong emotional connections. And when you break up with somebody and you're forced to build your life without them and make your own happiness in life again, you can keep getting pulled backwards into thoughts of your ex or picturing them or stalking their social medias or wanting to drive by their house, like whatever the issue is. It's like you're almost yearning for connection with that person. And even if you don't want to reconnect with that person, it doesn't mean you don't still feel the urgent need to when you're struggling with an attachment. And so one of the things that I've been using successfully over the years is cord cutting rituals. I've done these with therapists. I've also done these with energy healers, shamans, and you could even use YouTube videos or other podcast clips or websites to help guide you to do a self cord cutting ritual. I'm going to put additional content on my TorontoUnicorn.com website. I have an episode page for Life Hack 26, and I'm going to put links there to help guide you through any cord cutting rituals you might want to pursue and give some recommendations for even just like videos that I watched that helped. So you can get a link to that in the description. So cord cutting is more symbolic than anything else, except that it's effective. But basically, there's lots of ways to do it. Some people like to have a physical representation of a cord. So maybe it's a rope or a piece of string. And sometimes it's even just writing a goodbye letter and then burning it into the universe. That's also considered a cord cutting ritual. So I know a lot about cord cutting, but in order to give more informed information on this podcast, I did rely on some insights from insighttimer.com. So typically a cord cutting ritual consists of like a visualization, meditation, and a symbolic or literal cord, like a string, rope, anything else. It's a symbolic practice aiming at releasing negative bonds or attachments to a person, situation, or past event. And so while it can vary depending on personal beliefs and practices, a typical cord cutting ritual involves intention setting, cord cutting, forgiveness, and release. So some people do cord cuttings to break the sadness or grief associated with somebody, but you could also cord cut with somebody even if they're just draining your energy. So even if you're not overly haunted or sad about a breakup, but you just can't stop thinking about them, you could do a cord cutting ritual to try and sever any invisible energetic cords that are still attached. And cord cutting isn't a once and done. Sometimes you need to do multiple cord cuttings, especially because after you cut a cord with somebody, in my personal experience, energetically, it is felt by all parties involved. I cannot tell you how many times I've had an ex-boyfriend come back or text me within, like, I don't know, a day of me doing a cord cutting ritual, because they must have felt it. Now, having said that, was it a good thing that these exes reached back out and came back? Ultimately, at the end of the day, no. So keep that in mind. The cord cutting ritual is not meant to like bring people back. It's meant to help you heal. So I would say that yes, it is effective and people do feel it. And so they might have a sense of panic when they suddenly feel less of a connection to you. And so be prepared for that. But if you do reestablish connection with somebody after a cord cutting ritual, then you've undone your work and you would have to do another cord cutting ritual to ever make the same progress again. Like that is something I had to learn the hard way. You can do all the work, do a cord cutting, and then you could just quickly reestablish that connection with one phone call the next day because now your energetic cords are tied again. I remember once I spent like $180 an hour to go get this energetic healing. And it was really, really spiritual, really effective. And literally within like 24 hours, I was already reconnected to the guy by text. And I didn't reach out to him, right? He reached out to me, but it was undone. I felt like that was $180 not well spent because now I'm reconnected. So if you are doing a cord cutting ritual, move on after, maybe block them so that they can't come back. Cord cutting is a really effective way of helping your brain process your desire to let go. And so sometimes you need to do these rituals in order to accept in a different part of your soul and being that you do want to let them go. According to insidertimer.com, these are signs of unhealthy courting that you have with people. It's when your energy levels are depleted, you have feelings of general lethargy, depression, and unexplained sadness. You have feelings of being stuck or unable to make decisions. Obsessive thoughts about another person, speaking often about another person, often in a judgmental or deprecating way, lowered immune function, so getting sick often, and unhealthy habits and addictive behaviors, seeking comfort in excess such as smoking, binge eating, drugs, drinking, and even seemingly healthy habits such as over-exercising. So I'm not going to walk you through how to do a cord cutting here because I'm going to put that additional content on my website, but I'll give you the highlights. So you ground yourself through meditation or breath work. You visualize the energetic cord connecting you to the individual or situation. You symbolically or literally use a tool to sever the cord. And you cleanse your energy field and fill the space left by the cord with love and compassion. Some signs that your cord cutting practice is helping is after you have a profound sense of freedom, you feel unburdened and liberated, and a sense that considerable weight has been lifted off your shoulders. Again, I can personally attest to cord cutting rituals, but sometimes you have to do many of them with the same person because you have so many ties. Either way, if you're stuck and you can't let go, try doing a cord cutting ritual and see if you wake up a little bit lighter tomorrow. Life hack 27, put your bare feet on the earth. Trust me on this one. When I first started learning about spiritual healing and energy healing, one of the things that people always said is make sure you go outside, go for a walk, get enough sun, go lay on the grass. And I'm like, No, turns out there's something to it, right? And so once I realized the benefits of grounding or earthing, they're kind of similar, I will never look back. And so here's why this is a life hack. If you need help stabilizing your nervous system, if you need help calming yourself down, go sit on the earth. Take your socks off, your shoes off, and put your bare feet on the sand, on the grass, on the dirt, and do that for at least 30 minutes a day if you can. And I personally can attest to the benefits of my overall well-being. I feel a certain sense of calm and even belonging, a sense of reduced anxiety, even if I'm still sad, which by the way, I do go and sit on the earth every single morning. It's just part of my grounding in the morning. And when I do, yeah, sometimes I'm still sad, but it's a different place to be sad. It's a more grounded place, a feeling of it's okay, And so I did get some information on the web to help guide this life hack, but ultimately I want you to Google this. You could also go to my website, TorontoUnicorn.com. Episode 27 for this podcast has its own webpage, and I'll put some additional links there on grounding and earthing techniques. This is free. Guys, this is free. And what do you have to lose by trying it? Nothing. So if you are struggling with getting over this breakup and tough feelings, I want you to go and put your body in contact with the earth and see how it helps you. So there is some science behind earthing and grounding, and it has something to do with the electrical exchange and reconnecting our energetic bodies to the earth. And there's a lot of complicated explanations for why it works. You're welcome to look that information up for yourself. What I need to tell you is if you're struggling getting over a breakup and you haven't been trying putting your bare feet or hands or laying down on the earth every day, I highly recommend you start. If you have a park nearby, I would recommend you go and make yourself a little spot in the grass where you look forward to going. If you have a backyard, use that. If you can put your body, submerge it in a body of natural water, that would also be effective as well. There's just something to bringing your body back to a sense of, I would call it emotional equilibrium, and I think it really was effective. Life hack 28, a hot shower can calm you the F down. Sometimes the best thing you can do when you are super upset about something and you can't get yourself to calm down, you can't calm down your nervous system, maybe you're crying too much, or maybe you're just super sad or super angry. Honestly, one thing that helps me is to go and take a hot shower and let that water hit you all over your face, your head, whatever. Cry in the shower if you need to. I mean, there's already water coming down. No one will really hear you. It's a really private place. And if you do have one of those minds where you can visualize things, visualize the cleansing of your aura of all the sadness with all of the water that is hitting you. Watch like it's in your mind's eye, your third eye. Watch the water wash away the sadness and grief in your mind and stand there and just let it flow and cleanse you. So this is something I have done that helps me. Sometimes I've even had to have multiple showers a day because I was so upset and I needed to keep going to this solution. So if you go into the hot shower and use this as a life hack to calm you down and get you to a state of grounded again, you could use this and make it a transformational experience. And even if you just believe it's going to be transformational and helping you calm down, it will be effective. Study the placebo effect and you'll know what I mean. So yeah, go have a hot shower or a cold shower, a bath, whatever it is. But it's amazing what you can do with just, getting yourself into a re-cleansed state and trying again to emotionally regulate. Life hack 29, signs that you are healing. When you're lost in the depths of despair and grief and pain, especially after a traumatic loss of a breakup, you can wonder if you're ever going to feel better. You can wonder, when is this going to be over? When can I reasonably expect to be back to a normal feeling? And that's a fair question, because for a lot of us, they can feel like we're drowning and we don't see land, like we don't see a way out. We don't see an end. And I want you to make a list for yourself of how will you know you're healing. It didn't really occur to me until I saw a Reddit post in one of my breakup threads that I'm on that it's actually hard to define or know that we're actually healing and moving forward unless we carve them out and recognize them. And that's what this life hack is. You need to know the signs that you're healing. For me, the signs that I am healing, I'm roughly like 35 days out from a breakup that was hurtful, like very big loss to me. So for my personal situation, I noticed that some of the signs that I was healing was that maybe for the first time, I wouldn't wake up crying. I wouldn't wake up wondering why they're not in bed with me, or, crying about the fact that they're not still in my life. Sometimes I'll notice that I'll be able to watch a movie or hang out with a friend and have a laugh about something that's completely not related to my ex or anything sad. And then I'll come back to sadness later, but it was nice to have the vacation, right? The vacation from grief. That's a sign you're healing too, is when you can have gaps in your pain, right? So yes, you should go and find distractions that are healthy, and that's a good way to experience the absence of pain if you can get there. Another sign is that if you have an internal dialogue in your head, it can start to shift to more I statements instead of we. Like I used to think, oh, that would be a great place for me and so to go, or oh, so-and-so would like that. And so instead, in my head, It's about what I like and things that I want to do. So that was something I noticed, was that I stopped making it about our future plans, me and my ex, because he's not in my future anymore, and making my future about me and doing that more instinctively. That was a sign for me that I was healing. And so I think it's important that you realize that there is going to be a day that the fog and the grief lifts to a point where you look back and realize your progress. And so making note of the signs that you're healing is just a beautiful part of tracking your journey and believing in yourself that you're going to get there and you're already well on your way. Life hack 30. Turning your pain into purpose. So unless you've gone through a traumatic loss in your life, you might not understand the feeling of having this unresolved grief, unresolved anger, unresolved loss. And it can feel like a cyclone of energy that just like you carry with you. And sometimes you are looking for desperate ways to get that out of you. You know, like some people like look for methods to release anger, release feelings in general, like sadness, like through tears, through journaling. But in general, there can be an overwhelming sense of pain. And what do you do with that? And so one of the biggest life hacks is to turn that pain into purpose. And so if you look at people who have lost somebody to cancer or lost somebody to diabetes or whatever, and then you see them join like a run for the cure, you know, a marathon where they take pledges and raise money for the disease. This is a beautiful example of how people can take pain, take loss, and funnel it into energy that's positive and put it towards something so that they feel that they're at least trying to do something. They're trying to raise money for cancer research. They're trying to help, right? That's a beautiful example. And so it's a life hack, because if you learn that you have the power to transmute energy, negative, grief, sadness, once you've processed it enough, you'll be able to transmute it into something positive if you're savvy enough. And this is where I think I wanted to explain why I did this podcast. And I should mention that this is a video version of this podcast. It is the only episode so far that I am actually looking into the camera and speaking. So if you're listening on like Spotify or Apple, click in the description of this podcast to get a link to the YouTube video, the YouTube version of this episode, and you can see the really rare opportunity of where I'm actually looking and talking and frankly showing some emotion. So the reason I am doing this Life Hack Your Breakup podcast is actually to turn my own pain into purpose. It's to turn my own life experiences, including a recent experience, into something that is positive, constructive, and actually available to help people. And it was when I was going through my most recent breakup, which wasn't that long ago, and it's a hard one. It's a tough one. And I had to learn, you know, to go to those life hacks and do those things to help me get through it. And so I remember thinking, well, this could help someone else, you know, and if it's helping me, it'll help someone else. So I should really be like writing this down for people. And so that's kind of how this whole podcast came about, is I was realizing that there's people out there who are not sure what to do when they face significant grief and pain. And it can feel so overwhelming that people are at risk. Right? During this process, my friend, one of my younger friends, was going through one of her, well, it was her second relationship breakup in her life. Okay. And so as empathetic as I was for my younger friend, I'm like, honey, you're going to get your heart broken so many more times. Like, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but she's got some life to live still. At her age, she was struggling and she was grasping for help. And I realized that what I could do is tell her these life hacks. Take a hot shower when you can't get your emotional regulation under control. The benefits of grounding and sitting on the earth. The truly transformational benefits of journaling and being able to get all of that crazy energy that won't stop ruminating and circulating and putting it out on paper and giving you some peace. And so I was giving my friend all these separate pieces of advice, and I remember thinking, you know what? I want to give everybody this advice, anybody who needs it. And so I really hope that whoever has watched and engaged with this podcast, I hope that you have found something in it for yourself, some value. If you have, I would really ask you to please review this podcast, especially on apps like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Audible, because this is a new podcast and I'm trying to reach an audience of people who actually need the help. Please share the link to this podcast. It's available on so many different listening platforms, and all of them are going to be listed in the description of this episode. And you can share it and give somebody the whole list and give them life hacks to make their pain lessen, to be able to take their power back, to regain the ability to emotional regulate. And it would mean a lot to me that the pain that ultimately drove this project would be serving a very higher purpose of healing the world, one breakup at a time. So thank you for tuning in.
Are you looking to share a specific life hack with somebody that you thought was helpful? Well, if you click in the description of this video, you'll be able to find a playlist with each of the individual life hack videos and podcast episodes. Please don't forget to subscribe and give this video a like, and good luck on your healing journey.